Hello. This week's Torah portion, Lech Lecha, describes the beginning of Judaism. It tells us that 4,000 years ago, a man named Abram, living in Ur of the Chaldees in Mesopotamia, which is present-day Iraq, began to hear a voice. Now, in today's world, Abram would be sent to a psychiatric hospital to be treated for schizophrenia. But in those days, they viewed the matter differently. The voice told Abram, quote, "Go to the land that I will show you. I will give it to you and to your descendants forever. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. I will make you a great nation. Your seed shall be as the dust of the earth." With this simple statement, God laid out the entire basis of Judaism and foretold Jewish history. Let me explain. First, Judaism began with the commandments. Go. Judaism is a religion of commandments, not of beliefs. In exchange for us following commandments, God makes promises. This is what's known as a covenant, brit in Hebrew. It defines Judaism. We do our part, and God does his. God made several promises in this statement. First, a promise of property. I will give the lands to you and to your descendants forever. Second, a promise of permanence. If the Jews are to own the land forever, then surely the Jews will be around forever to enjoy it. The word forever implies permanence. Third, a promise of protection. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Fourth, a promise of performance. I will make you a great nation. Fifth, a promise of progeny. Your seed shall be as the dust of the earth. And sixth, an implicit promise of preference. God spoke to Abram and to no one else. Now, note also that many promises were not made. There is no promise of peace. There's no promise of prosperity. No promise of power. No promise of perfection. No promise of popularity. No promise of prevention of bad things happening. As Jewish history unfolded, it became clear that the words God used in his statement even had a deeper significance. He said, "Your seed shall be as the dust of the earth." The Midrash tells us that the dust of the earth is also scattered all over the earth, and so will we. The dust of the earth is trampled upon, and so will we. Yet the dust of the earth cannot be destroyed, and we Jews are still here. When Frederick the Great asked his Protestant pastor to give him proof of the existence of God quickly, as he was not inclined to long theological discussions, the pastor replied simply, "Your Majesty, the Jews." That was proof enough. Mark Twain wrote in 1899, quote, "The Egyptian, the Babylonian, and the Persian rose, filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Roman followed and made a vast noise, and they are gone. Other peoples have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but it burned out, and they sit in twilight now or have vanished. The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal, but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?" Now, was this covenant kept by both parties? Let's examine the promises one by one. First, the promise of property. Well, Jews lived in the land of Israel, more or less as masters, for 1,500 years. Then the Romans expelled them, and they were out for 1,900 years. Then they came back in 1948 and have been there ever since. The promise of permanence. The Jews are still here. Nothing more needs to be said. The promise of protection. History has shown that the worst anti-Semites don't last long. Nazi Germany is a prime example. History has shown that kindness to Jews and tolerance are rewarded. The United States is a prime example. Many other nations are in between, rising when Jews are tolerated, falling when they are not. Spain is a prime example. Note that the promise, "I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you," does not imply prevention of bad things happening to us, but only reward and punishment after the fact. Indeed, terrible things have happened to us Jews, even though the perpetrators were eventually punished. The promise of performance. Jews have performed well for the benefit of humanity. To use just a single objective measure, Jews are only 1/5 of 1% of humanity, yet they have gotten 1/3 of the Nobel Prizes. So Jews are getting Nobel Prizes at a rate more than 150 times what their small numbers would suggest. The promise of progeny. By numbers only, no. The promise must not be understood that way. Jews are still a very tiny fraction of humanity, and their numbers have not increased significantly over the centuries. But by influence, yes. Jews founded Christianity. Jesus and all the early Christians were Jews. Islam was born of Jewish influences, and the Islamic holy city of Medina was built by Jews. The Torah says, "I will make Ishmael a mighty nation, but my covenant shall be through Isaac." Jews have also made their influence felt in fighting for social justice. Jews were very active in civil rights. The Torah says, "Justice, justice shall you pursue. Remember that you were slaves in the land of Egypt." The promise of preference. Jews have always been imbued with a sense of mission because of the feeling of being chosen. Everybody should feel that way. The Torah tells us, "You shall be my treasured possession from among all the nations. You shall be unto me a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." The book of Isaiah tells us, "You shall be a light unto the nations." Yet the Torah also says, "I did not choose you because you were the most numerous or the most virtuous, for you are a stiff-necked people." Perhaps this may be understood positively. God may have been saying, "I need someone with the stubbornness, endurance, and staying power to keep my Torah throughout history and give it to the world." So chosenness has infused Jews with a sense of mission. We are here for a reason. We have a purpose in life. Jews feel this extra push with a 4,000-year-old tradition behind that feeling and the highest authority as its source. If everybody felt that way, within their own traditions, everybody wins. Downgrade the Jews by telling them they are not chosen, and everybody loses. So this was the beginning of Judaism. A simple statement that foretold an entire story. A story that is still unfolding. Stay tuned. Shabbat Shalom.